I call Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and as Chairman of the Local Government Environment Select Committee, it gives me great pleasure to be speaking in this first reading debate on this Wildlife Powers Amendment Bill, introduced by my friend and colleague, the Honourable Maggie Barry. I listened carefully to the contribution made by the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, and I think she's raised several good points that will need to be teased out and addressed at Select Committee, and I want to give the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta a cast-iron guarantee that the committee will strive to make sure that we get a good range of submissions, that we give those submissions due consideration, and that the matters that she raises will be carefully considered by the committee. I want to thank the Minister for her very considered introductory comments. I thought that her speech, and I listened carefully to it, was very good, and it actually neatly summed up what are the nub of the issues confronting the hard-working warranted DOC officers who do so much to preserve our natural environment and also the creatures that live in that natural environment. The Honourable Nanaia Mahuta and I have something in common in that our electorates cover the same piece of geography, and one of the great features of the Coromandel electorate is that a very large proportion of my electorate is covered and administered by the DOC Conservation Estate. And in that area, Mr Speaker, there are a small but very dedicated group of warranted DOC officers and rangers who do an extraordinary job on behalf of all New Zealanders. And to have those people's work, their good work, so frustrated as it has been now for so long, when they encounter criminal activity occurring and not being able to do anything meaningful about it, is not only frustrating for those committed officers, but also extremely frustrating for those of us members of the public who want to ensure that our conservation estate is protected and secured for the future. So this Act, as the Minister Maggie Barry made comment on, is a reforming of the Principal Act, the Wildlife Act of 1953. Now, it will come as no surprise to members of the House that an awful lot has occurred since 1953, much of it for the good, and we now live in a society where many of the pleasantries that existed back in 1953 in terms of our conservation estate no longer exist. The simple stark reality is that many of our native creatures are highly sought after in terms of black marketing across the international marketplace for people who have evil intent and who want to market internationally our rare and endangered species. This Act on first reading would appear to give those DOC officers, about 260 of them, the power that they need to, in certain circumstances when it's warranted and needed, to do something about criminal activity in our native environment when they come across it. And this bill will better empower DOC staff to take on those who are offending against our native wildlife. There are four main provisions in this bill. The four new standard powers that the bill will give to those officers will be, firstly, to take preventive action when an offence is about to occur. When they know that something is going to happen, they will now be able to actually intervene and do something about it, rather than merely stand aside and watch criminal activity occur in the most frustrating way. The second power that they'll be given is to temporarily stop persons suspected of an offence so that an investigation can be allowed and can take place. Now, up until the passing of this legislation, that has not been able to take place. The third power will be a power to seize a broader range of evidence. And of course, back in 1953, there weren't such things as laptops and iPhones and cameras and mobile phones and all that sort of device. So much of the criminal offending and evidence of it is now recorded on such devices, and this bill, when passed, will ensure that DOC officers have the ability to seize evidence such as that of an electronic and technical nature. And then the fourth power that they'll be given is to require identification details from suspected offenders. Nothing could be more frustrating, sir, for a DOC officer than to come across an illegal act going on in the DOC estate somewhere and then to not be able to demand and insist that the perpetrators of these crimes identify themselves when they are suspected of being an offender. So this bill modernises the Principal Act, not before time in my view, and I'm very much looking forward to working with parties across the House to guide it through the Select Committee process. I was interested to hear on the radio this morning Kevin Haigh from the Green Party indicating that the Greens are going to support this legislation, and I welcome that too, sir. So I'm looking forward to this bill coming to the Local Government Environment Select Committee. I'm looking forward to providing a rigorous scrutiny of it, and I'm looking forward to receiving submissions from a wide cross-section of New Zealanders who are interested in the work that our DOC officers do and in preserving the natural environment over which they administer. I commend this bill to the House, sir.